Hello and very welcome to another tutorial in a series of tutorials for the Lampy console. In this tutorial, we will talk about the playback settings. You may access the playback settings from within the playback view by clicking on the magic wand button. From within the playback settings dialog, you can configure how the fader should behave by clicking on the drop-down menu next to fader function and choosing the appropriate function. Let's have a look at these functions. Disabled means that this fader has no functions. Dimmer means that this fader will act as a dimmer master for the cue list contents. It will only affect dimmer channels. Speed means that the fader will control the playback's speed, that means next, fade and snap timings, and effect speed of the playback. 100% of the speed value is equivalent to the speed programmed, and as you move the fader down, it will slow down everything contained in it. In-fade means that this fader will crossfade all parameters in the cue list. X-fade will manually crossfade between the current and the next cue, allowing for manual crossfades. Effect size will affect the effect size of any effects that are contained in this playback, whereas effect speed will manipulate the effect speed of any of the effects contained in any of the cues of the playback. The fader also has two options, auto start and auto stop. With auto start turned on, this playback will turn on as soon as the fader gets higher than a zero value. Auto stop will turn off the playback as soon as the fader reaches zero again. Let's scroll down a little bit and have a look at the button functions. They are also configurable. There is many settings in this drop-down box. One of them is disabled, which will disable the button. You can set the button to select the fader. You can set the button to toggle the playback on and off. You can set it to go, so it will advance through the playback. You can set it to pause back, so the button will pause the playback. You can set it to skip plus or skip minus, which will advance forward or backwards in the cue list without timings. You can set it to flash, which will flash the fader's value to 100%. Keep in mind that the playback needs to be switched on for this to work. In the other cases, there's the option flash plus go, which will flash the fader value to 100% and go the playback while you push the button down. Flash plus off will flash the playback to 100% and switch it off after you release the button. Flash plus go plus off will turn the playback on once you push the button and flash the value to 100%, and off the playback once you release the button. Go plus off will simply turn the playback on when you push the button and turn it off when you release the button. Off will turn off the playback, including the user-defined off time. Instant off will turn off the playback instantly. Assert will bring the playback back into the front position in the priority stack of the console. That means if it has been overridden with something else, assert will bring this playback back to the foreground. And there's a tap sync function in case the cue list is set to a chaser. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Now we can adjust the playback settings of this playback itself. The playback may either be set to a cue list or to a chase. Let's have a look at cue list first. When the playback is set to a cue list, we do have a run mode, which will advance to the first cue once the playback has reached the end of all cues. The other option is to switch off at end, which means that the playback will be switched off once it reaches the end of all cues. The next option is called off time. Off time is the amount of time that your playback will fade out when you switch it off. Another function is a convenience function, which is called auto off other effects. When turned on, effects that are output by other playbacks, scenes or executors that are affected by parameters in this playback will automatically be turned off. Last but not least is the learn timing function that can be used to teach the console timings for cues that are set to timecode. Now let's have a look at the chase. A chaser is basically very similar to a cue list, except that each cue in this list has the same timings. We also have the run mode setting in here, but we get a new group box containing some chaser settings. We can define how this chaser should be triggered. If it's either a chase master that can be found in the virtual executor view, a local tap sync, such as setting the button of this playback to be a tap sync, or it can be triggered by the sound input bass, mid and high. We can also set the playback direction, forward, backward or random, and we can set a crossfade time for the cues. Let's switch this playback back to cue list. And let's create a new simple chase. Let's turn this playback off, go to the fixtures view, turn on our floor fixtures and press record and select the playback. Now for the second cue, let's turn off the floor fixtures, select the fixtures in the back, turn them on and add a new cue to that playback. Let's turn off the dimmer again and select the fixtures in the mid, turn them on and record that into the same playback. This playback now has 3 steps, and let's clear the programmer. Now I can set this to be a chase. If it's a chase and we go back to the list, you see that we only have the sort icon, the cue ID, the name and the load values button. And you automatically see the chaser running in the background. Down here we now have a slider to adjust the crossfade time between these steps. As the trigger is set to the chase master, we control the speed from the virtual playback fader window. Let's configure the button of this playback as a tap sync button. It is important that when the button is configured as a tap sync, the chase trigger in here is set to local tap sync. Now, whenever we push the playback's button, we learn the speed of this chaser. I hope you liked this tutorial and I hope to see you soon for many more tutorials, and keep learning and playing with the Lampy console.